Well, hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Life Design Plus, where we are mastering the art of living your authentic life. I'm excited for this episode as I have my good friend Scott Frank joining me to talk about life planning. Now, Scott is a financial advisor. He's the founder of Stone Steps Financial out in California, and he's a good friend of mine who I had the pleasure of getting to know early in my career of owning my own firm. So we met maybe 6 or 7 years ago in the early days of RLS Wealth. And Scott is actually the first person to introduce me to the life planning process, introduced me to George Kinder. And it took a number of years before life planning became the right way for me to go about my work with clients going forward. And it all has to do with Scott putting it in front of me and me going on this journey of exploring it and learning it along the way. So I couldn't think of anybody else to come in other than Scott and talk about the value of life planning, what it looks like. So you, maybe if you're not a financial advisor, can see another way to approach your financial planning, focusing on your life first and then bringing finances to it. There's nobody better to explain it. There's nobody better to show you what it looks like than Scott. So it was a no-brainer for me to have him on. Check the show notes down if you like Scott's style and if you're looking for somebody to help you plan your authentic life and Scott is your guy. Stone Steps is there. You can get connected with him. And if you're interested in life planning and I'm your guy, let me know, because that's what I'm doing at RLS Wealth from here going forward. This is the foundation of what it is I'm going to do. I'm in the early stages. Scott's been doing this for a while. He's an OG, but I cannot wait to get better at the art of asking questions, being empathetic, and giving the client and giving you the space to figure out what it is you want out of life. I think you're going to hear Scott, and you're going to want this in your financial planning if you're not already getting it. So with that, let's get to this awesome conversation with my friend Scott Frank. Scheduled this, I didn't realize the timing was going to be perfect, that you'd be getting back from leading a class of advisors through the Evoke process. And I loved your out of office when you said you were away from the office helping financial advisors, teaching them how to be better advisors. So how was the week up in Hawaii and kind of that experience?
Oh, it was so fun. It was a little nerve-wracking because my mentor, who was supposed to be sitting second chair next to me, came up with COVID the day before. So he wasn't able to be present with me the entire time. So I was a little worried about that, if I could really, to be able to really deliver this training, because it's a really experiential training to advisors over that. And it's 5 days, right? So you're really just on for 5 days from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night. There's no break for you as the trainer. So it's making sure you have the energy for it too. But it was amazing. And the reason it's amazing is because it is experiential. And what you're doing is you're teaching advisors, my out of office was to make better advisors. Advisors are really, really good at, typically what I find is they're really, really good at understanding the technical, and they're really, really good at helping people solve technical problems. The thing that they're not always best at is really connecting with their clients. And when I say connecting with their clients, it's connecting with what's essential for their clients to live a fulfilled life, to really bring the client's life to flourish, is a way you could think of it, right? And sometimes we think, oh, well, an advisor's job is really just to focus on asset allocations and tax strategies and estate planning and insurance, and that's true, but money is really, at the end of the day, just a tool, and the tool is there to help the clients live the best life they possibly can. And you make a lot of assumptions with your own biases if you don't really learn how to listen actively with empathy. To really help the client. You really are facilitating a space to allow the client to figure out what matters most to them. And then once we understand that just becomes the lens through which all that amazing technical knowledge that advisors have gets put to use. So it was a long answer to tell you that it was a great week. All of the advisors left with lit up and ready to go do their work, which was awesome.
Yeah, I did that training in December. I did it virtually. I didn't go through out to Hawaii, and I've talked about it before, so I won't go too deep into it in this episode because there's other things I think people want to hear about from you. But it was life changing for me. Life changing from a personal standpoint, but life changing also from a professional standpoint. And that I think it was the culmination of everything that I've been doing with this alignment of spirit, mind, and body myself that I'm trying to bring to other people. And it was like, here's the purpose. Here's why I aligned my spirit, mind, and body, which led me to this. I did Evoke at the right time because you turned me on to life planning. I want to say it was about 2018 is when we did an episode on All About Your Benjamins about it. And like I was already kind of like naturally that's the approach I took to talking to clients, but I didn't even know life planning existed. You told me about it. I was like, oh, that's great. So I went out and got all of George's books and read them, and then never went forward with it. And I went into Evoke. So for those who don't know, I probably mentioned a little bit in the intro. Evoke is a part of a process to get a registered life planner designation that George Kinder created, and it's through the Kinder Institute. And my plan was I'm just going to go through Evoke, not go get the whole designation, because I just want to learn how to be a better listener, a more empathetic listener, and learn about the process. And by the end of the first day, I was like, nope, I'm committed. Like it was just magical. And hopefully we can paint some of what that magic looks like and why it works. And then eventually some listeners may reach out to a life planner and actually go through the process. I guess the next logical question would be to maybe have you give an introduction to what life planning is. And then we can contrast it to what I call traditional financial planning. And I don't necessarily, I do think one is better than the other, but I think there's a need for both of them out there. And one of the things I think, as somebody who's trying to do more of this in my practice, I don't know if everybody is ready for the life planning component of it. I have a belief that I think not everybody really knows what they want in a fulfilled life because they've never really given the thought. So when they come to sit with a financial advisor, they're automatically going to retirement at 65, kids through college, house, like the things we've been coached to want. And some people need some guidance to figure out, the bigger picture, and other people know when they want the help. So with that being, a little bit of a ramble, kind of give the audience an introduction to life planning, and then we'll contrast it to financial planning.
Well, in all honesty, I think that, and I know George has said this many times, that financial life planning really is financial planning done right. Right. And the reason that I say that is even if you go look at the, and this is more audience client facing or to the masses facing rather than financial planner facing. But if a financial planner were to go look at the CFP standards that hopefully anyone who the audience goes and finds, you find a CFP because it's kind of the basics of knowing what they should do in wealth management for you. But if you go look at what it says about working with the client, it says that you have a standard where you really need to know the client, right? And in the traditional way we do it to know the client is the client comes in and we say, well, tell me about yourself. And you say, here's what I do for a living, and this is how much money I have. And, and then we say, great, let's take a risk assessment score to see how much risk you can take in your portfolio. And if it's a money management facing relationship, that's probably about where it ends. If it's a financial planning relationship, it might be like, well, send me your mortgage and let's create a net worth sheet and let's see what your employee benefits are doing. And they look at all these things financial and they start helping you make choices with them to optimize them. But the optimization that they do in the traditional frame is almost always to the textbook answer. So this is the way I was taught to do it. This is the solution that you get. And I asked you if I knew you because I asked how old you are and do you have kids and do you have a dog? And so I'm asking you kind of superficially who you are. The difference between that and financial life planning is financial life planning is really about, and it's not even as much about the advisor getting to know who the client is, because they will get to know, but it's even more so about the client getting to know who they are.
That's the aspect I love. So I'll shout out Louis real quick because you mentioned your mentor who was sick. Louis was my instructor for the class. There was something he said, I don't know if it was day 1 or day 2, that really put the light bulb off on me. And we'll get back to your definition, but I want to put this in real quick. And he said that when with life planning, the advisor is under no obligation to provide any answers for the client.
Nope.
And I love that. Not because I don't want to provide answers. Like I'm happy to provide answers, but I love the idea of, can I help the client find their own answers within? Because I believe all of the answers to all of our problems lie within. There's just a bunch of stuff in the way. And when he said that, I was like, yes, that is what I want to do. So sidebar.
Well, no, it's 100% correct. I'm going to give a little
Yeah.
frame there because some people listening might be like, well, then what does the
Right.
advisor
Right.
do? Right. So the key here is that in the first few meetings, the phase of the meetings is really allowing the client to explore with breadth what are all of the elements in their life that may matter to them. And there's nothing silly. Like bring out the stuff that you don't even dare, maybe you haven't even talked about it for years. Right. And so really that meeting is really all about wonderful listening by the advisor, so that you'll feel truly heard and that you're in a trusting space where you can bring out the things that really matter to you. Right. And then the other fear that happens there is oftentimes with couples, there's a person sitting next to you that you may have chose to bury something deep down for a long time, and you don't really bring it out because the two of you never have enough. Even with couples, we don't necessarily have such deep, quiet conversations where one person's really listening and the other person's speaking to the point where they can bring out all of the elements in their life that really matter to them. We get so easily wrapped up in the shallower conversations of, you're my client for a minute, Justin, and the third thing that you say, you mentioned that you grew up in the north side of Indianapolis, and then I start talking about Indianapolis too. And what that just did was it just told you that you don't even really see it consciously, but unconsciously what it told you was the first two things didn't matter to Scott. This one does. I'm asking questions about it now. So now it's my meeting. It's not your meeting anymore. And now you're more than likely not going to bring out the elements in your life that really matter to you, that maybe the real longings in your life that you really need to live a fulfilled life, right? We want to give you the space to bring those out, right? That's really what that's all about. That from there we go into using some inspirational exercises. I'm just kind of going through the meetings that we do right now with clients so that people can understand the frame. And what happens is in those inspirational exercises, you get a chance to prioritize all the things that matter to you. And these 3 questions can act as a really good frame for that. So the first question, Justin, is you wake up in the morning, you check your phone, and your balance, your net worth is high enough that now you have all the money you need for now and the future, whatever that means to you. So if you need to have an airplane, you have one, right? If you need to have 4 houses, you have them. Like whatever it is you need in your life, it's there. You don't have to work anymore if you don't want to. And the question is, how would you choose to live your life? Don't hold back. And really write out a life that's fully yours with no money obstacle. It's all yours. The world is yours for the taking. How would you choose to live your life? And now you get to do that, and your wife gets to do that, right? You get to answer separately, and we want you to answer separately because you're 2 individuals who are choosing to be a couple, right? So one of the big things that happens again with a life planning frame with an advisor who focuses on this versus a traditional frame is I've seen that on traditional frames, for financial planning, someone would be like, well, who in the family manages the finances? Okay, that's my person. Well, no, that doesn't really work because money, again, is just a tool. It's not who's in charge of putting in the trades. It's why are we putting in the trades? It's to support you both. So we need to make sure we understand what does a great life look like to you both. And that's where these 3 questions will help. So the second question you answer is you go to your doctor, and sadly, they give you really tough news. They tell you they have a terminal illness, which would be devastating for you, Justin, because I know you and I know how old your kids are, right? And the key to this question is we in the question, the doctor tells you that you'll never feel sick for a day that remains, but your time frame now is between 5 years and 10 years, and there's no notice of the final day. So, like you might see the kids graduate college, but you might not, right? And you don't get your unlimited money here. You just get whatever you have now. And so the question is, if you really feel it, if the time's constricted now, what will you choose to do with the time you have remaining? How will you choose to live your life? And then the final question that we give you is, you go to your doctor, and this time it's the worst, especially when we have young children, and you have a lovely wife as well, and you go to your doctor and they tell you that, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, we missed this. you have a terminal illness and time's up. Like you don't get to be here tomorrow. This is it. This is the final day. And like, I always get a sinking feeling when I really feel this one, because I think about the fact that I don't get to see Daxton and Lucas and Amanda tomorrow. And there's a lot of other people in my life that really matter to me and things I want to accomplish. But the question is, if you really sit with that, ask yourself, what did I miss? Who did I not get to be? What did I not get to do? And what'll happen is when you really allow yourself to go to that space and sit with those questions, it's going to elicit the things that what we would call your heart's core, the things that if they're not alive in Justin, you are not living your life to the level that you're going to be truly satisfied when you're in your rocking chair at the age of 80 looking back, right? Like, what are the things that need to happen in your life for you to live an amazing life right now? And it's with that lens, once we understand that lens, for each of you, that's the lens through which we do some other work as well that I'm not going to dive into because we don't have time today. But that's the lens through which you start to make your financial choices. And so instead of making textbook answers of everyone maxes their 401k, pre-tax or Roth, depending on how much, because they have enough income, well, if you want to retire at age 40 from your corporate job and be an adjunct professor and work for nonprofits, the way you build your balance sheet right now when you're a really high income earner in tech is going to be different than the person who loves their tech job and wants to be in it until they're 70.
It brings up your buddy Tim Maurer's famous quote, personal finance is more personal than finance. I love that quote.
It's yeah, I wish I'd come up with it, but he's way smarter than I am. But it's so true. It really is. And we all think like, oh, this is, it's so easy to think too that finance is easy because you're like, it's just an asset allocation. Oh, it's just, can you optimize your taxes? Oh, it's just your estate plan. Oh, it's just your investments or just your balance sheet. But all of those things are tied into the center of who are you, what's essential to you, what's the priority order of those things for you? Because often we can't have everything. We have to make a real choice as to the things that matter to us in our lives and the phases of our life, right? And then what could get in our way. And then making one change over here affects 2 or 3 other things over there. It's called a complex adaptive system. Your personal finances work very similarly to how your body works, right? One thing gets out of whack in your body, it affects other things in your body. You don't realize it at the time, but that's what's happening. And so the beauty of the relationship that we get to have with clients is we understand how that complex adaptive system works far better than they do because we live it every day. And then the other cool thing is that we get to help them, facilitate them, taking the time to look at what matters most to them. And that's where I'd probably end this little part of our conversation, because the thing you mentioned was you weren't sure if everyone's ready for this. And I think that the way that you know is you start by having a really good initial discussion where you're there, and the discussion is you're there to listen and ask them why they're here in front of you as an advisor and let them start to bring out the things that matter to them. Clients automatically are going to bring out their financial things because they're sitting in front of a financial advisor. It's the frame through which they feel they're supposed to act. And it is, right? Like if they go to the doctor, they're not going to ask about their tires might need to be rotated on their car. It's just not where you go, right? But the key is that once they're at ease with, yes, we do those things, and of course you only tell them things that you can actually do, right? But our firm, we're so used to helping clients with, executives with stock comp and small business owners that have, like that kind of like 1 million to 5 million net worth or revenue, and like they have all the things that go with it, the strategies that they need to employ. Yeah, we do that all day. But the question is, who are you? Who's the individual in front of us? What do you really want out of life? So we don't accidentally put the ladder against the wrong wall. It's a Stephen Covey quote, right? And have you climb. Like, I would hate to make my assumptions, my biases, which is what most advisors do, impact your outcome. I want to know what you want. And then once we know what you want, I can help you get what you want as quickly as possible. That's the difference to me between financial life planning and traditional financial planning.
So, let's say someone out there's listening, they've never really thought deeply about who they really are and what they really want.
Yeah.
They've just gone down this path that somebody sent them down. How would you recommend, or how would you help them begin to peel back the layers of their self?
So there's a couple ways you can do that. Now, in all honesty, though, the biggest way for advisors is to just be quiet. Like if you and I are having a conversation, it's, yeah, Justin, we help, because you're a small business owner. So like, yeah, we absolutely help small business owners make sure that you're optimizing your income and your profits, and you're not over investing in the business, so that you're leading a rich life while you're growing that business, and you understand those trade-offs. We help clients with that all the time. Knowing that that's important to you, we absolutely will be looking at that in your plan. Anything else? Now, you and I both know what I'm doing there, so I'm going to stop.
That's why I didn't break it, because I knew too, and that's
I know, but
allowing me to practice in the discomfort of the quiet.
We could have done it for a minute and a half, but the point is that we people process. And the other thing is just understanding how our bodies work. Daniel Kahneman talks about it in his book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. But so Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow is basically about behavioral finance, and it's about understanding how the brain works. And System 1 and System 2, I think I'm saying this correctly. System 1 is the what we call like the reptilian brain. So it's the hippocampus, and it's the amygdala and all those things. And then the prefrontal cortex, that's where we actually think, right? The prefrontal cortex, where we actually think, that's where like 2 + 2 = 4 and all those things get stored, and we can process those things and really think them. Thinking is instantaneous, right? That's System 2. System 1 runs on chemical releases in the body. It runs on emotion. They are waves, right? So one of the biggest things is that when people are thinking this type of thing through, they're not so much thinking it through as they are feeling it through. And what people need in that space is they need space. They need pauses. Most advisors are horrible. Most humans are horrible at creating space for people. So you create that space and that frame, and you let people see what comes up. That's what you do. Another frame, if someone really wants to think about this, or if they really want to feel it, a frame that I love that we actually were chatting about last week in the training for someone who was struggling to really clarify for themselves what they really want to focus on in life. The frame was, you, Jason, if you could really have every moment in your life feel like it's flourishing, how would that be? And so that question kind of becomes like, what are the elements in your day or in your week or in your year that are going to let you really feel like you're flourishing, like you're really being your full self? What does that look like to you? Because that gives you a freedom to start thinking about, well, what would that look like? And the key there is to just write them down and not worry about how would you do it in that instance, but it's more of all the little whats that would happen in your life for you to see that for yourself. But you'd be surprised, most people really have a good sense of what they need, even the people who don't think they do. They just need the space.
All right. It's about that time for interruption. Real quick, I just want to remind you about the daily notes and the weekly note that comes along with it. Every day I'm writing a note that I don't know what it's going to be when I wake up, but it is pertinent to whatever's going on, and the universe is giving me that message for me to bring to you. If you're interested in reading more things to prompt you to think about your spirit, your mind, your body, your authentic life, how money plays into all of it, the daily notes may be just that daily email you need to keep you moving forward and progressing. So if you're interested in getting those daily notes, head on over to my website, justincastelli.io. Down below, there'll be a bot for you to subscribe. I didn't do a pop-up and want to bother you. If you want the notes, go to the bottom of the page, subscribe. I'll get you on the email list, and you'll get those every day. And then every Saturday, the weekly note comes out that has all of the week's notes, plus some extra content that you will only get via email. You can find the daily note on LinkedIn and subscribe there, but you will not get the weekly note, which I think is worthwhile of going the email route rather than LinkedIn. All right, enough of my daily note. Let's get back to this conversation with Scott. When I think the space gives them the opportunity to like throw out one idea, and sometimes all you need to do is start going down that path and then things start unfolding, which is why,
Yes.
you might hear, is there anything else a lot of times in the process? And oftentimes people will say no, but then they go into another thing because it just kind of get that momentum going and then you can start really figuring things out.
Yeah, we do teach that when someone says, I don't have anything else, they almost always have something else. I don't think so means yes, there is. There's more. They need that space to process and think and feel. More so feel. Because the thing is that when you understand how our body works, 98% of the time, our body works on system one. And system one's a system that runs on feeling. It runs on waves, right? And we don't even think about many of the things that are happening to us. Like you're sitting in the meeting on a Zoom call and your Gmail's open and the parentheses pops up with 1. And you'll feel anxiety. Maybe it's excitement because you're expecting something that's going to be positive, but you're feeling stuff and you don't even realize you're feeling stuff, right? It happens all the time. And it's just, our body operates that way. So once you realize that, it just becomes if you can tune into that and understand what you're feeling and what's really pulling you toward things that you care about and what are some longings in your life that you have challenge around that you need help with, that's where like this work gets really interesting really fast.
Do you have any examples, obviously anonymous to a level to where maybe clients wouldn't know who they are, but of a story that like life planning has really changed somebody's life? Like they, totally revamped, almost like burned everything down and started from scratch and are in a much better place because of the process. And I'll, as you think about that, the caveat being like not everybody's life plan has to lead to that. For some people, it might just be minor tweaks. They've been really, really close and there's just a couple minor things. But I do think that this process could uncover a lot of things that are not right in somebody's life. It would require, moving across the country and all these different things that like you would be so afraid to do, but end up leading to a better life. So I don't know if there's any stories that you can kind of scale back the detail to paint that picture of what a life plan could do for somebody.
Yeah, definitely. So we had and to your point, this work can also, because like you're kind of asking for what's the big woo, like that's amazing. It can also be just as beautiful to see for someone to realize how content they are in their current life and how there are these small tweaks that they want to do to have more contentment and be more at ease with the life that they're living. That can be just as beautiful as the big shifts. But the big shifts, of course, are kind of more fun to talk about, right? Because you're seeing people make big shifts. One was someone that we worked with was working in an industry that they really just didn't enjoy at all, and they were making good money, and they'd saved a decent amount, but they weren't really yet at quote unquote retirement age. And their longing was to live in Europe and to become a writer. It's what they really wanted. And we realized with the planning, and they were doing some wonderful work on cash flow management with someone else who's another really good person. But we saw that it was totally possible. And we helped facilitate that move. And repurposing everything for them to be able to live that life. And it was amazing. It was amazing to watch them go from not thinking it's possible to the aha of it's possible to actually living it and how alive they are. Because you see it in the way that they act and in the health choices that they make and the way that they carry themselves, and it's just such a beautiful thing when that happens. So that was really cool.
I think it's worth noting that part of it is the process of life planning, taking them through and figuring those things out and aligning the dollars with the life. But I also want people to realize it's also not normal for a financial advisor to recommend or be on the same page to say, go do this. go leave this safe, great life with all these financial benefits for you and go do this thing where there's some perceived risks and it isn't normal. Like most financial advisors aren't going to make those recommendations, or not that we need to co-sign or approve it, but like basically say, yeah, go do it. Like you can go do it. Even if they saw the numbers, like most financial advisors are really, really conservative and afraid to think outside the box for compliance reasons and all these other things that have been hammered into our heads. But I think it's a combination of the process and the advisor that is willing to say, yes, we've done all the numbers and I know this is the right thing for you from the conversations. And because sometimes people need that little push to go do it. So maybe the numbers would
Oh
have
yeah.
told them they could do it, but hearing you say, hey, based off our conversations, based off the numbers, this is not a crazy risk. You should go live the life that you want. I think that's an important part of the process as well, as finding an advisor who's willing to, when the numbers suggest they can do it, don't hold them back.
There's two things there, right? One is in a sense, getting a second set of eyes to say permission granted. That's one, right? The other is just the frame that you're giving, that a lot of us as advisors still hold. Most advisors will have a lot of what we would call I, me, mines baked into their plan. So it's their plan, their process. They help clients, right? They know what they're doing. And it's a whole lot of them in the process. And it's more like they're wearing like a cape. I used to do this, so I know what it felt like. It's like I have my superhero cape on, and like if I could like put my hand, like stand like Superman, I would. I know what I'm doing. Listen to me. Like that's it's like very commanding. And with life planning, I think the recognition for me, the thing that happened, the aha moment that happened for me in this process that honestly made planning so much more fun, because it does get back to not always giving the textbook answer. I still need to know the textbook answers, but I need to look through the lens for the client on what strategies and tactics do we employ. My recognition is that, oh yeah, I'm not the hero. It's not my journey. It's their journey. They're the hero. I'm just the guide. That's the difference. I'm the guide. My job is to listen, to understand, to know what resources they have, and then understand what they really want to do in their life and how do we employ those resources to give them that life as quickly as possible. And help them understand the trade-offs that they're making. Right? Because we had with the client that I was thinking about that moved to Europe and is becoming a writer, we had that conversation of what will happen if, right? Like what if there is a catastrophic event in the global markets and there's like a depression and all of a sudden your assets can't support you the way that they were? What would you choose to do? Right? So it's really just walking through the frames of helping them understand what could occur. I can't promise because we never know. That's also the other funny frame to me, is that a lot of advisors get wrapped up in, like, we talk about that at a different time, but get wrapped up in like financial planning projections where they know exactly what inflation's going to be and the rate of return's going to be and at what age someone's going to die and what healthcare costs in 2054 are going to be. Like they know all this stuff perfectly somehow. And I'm just like, no, we don't really know that. But what we do know is where they are in the present moment. What are the key metrics that they have going for themselves in the present moment? And what are the choices that they can make? And they need to understand how to weigh those choices. And that's our job, is to come in and help them weigh those choices.
I'm thinking about some of the dialogues I've seen lately on like social media about, what clients want and planning and those types of things. And, there's the advisor that's just straight numbers and they don't do any of the emotional questions. And then there's the advisors where I think I fell in for so long that we do ask more deeper questions. We try to get more like emotional with our clients and get deeper, but they're still not quite to like the impact that life planning can have. Like beyond, and maybe it is just simple, the space and the listening, but for the advisors that are asking better questions, maybe even using versions of George's questions in their planning, for for somebody who is looking at advisors, like what would you say is the difference between the advisor who asks deeper questions, gets further into more of your why, and then what a life planning type of relationship might be? Like, where would you say the difference lies?
Yeah. So I think that I first of all, I'm always excited to hear that people are moving that direction. First of all, I think the biggest the biggest difference. So when the real core of what this work is learning how to listen, actively listen with empathy. And so when I say actively listen, I mean letting your own thoughts go and letting your feelings be. And what I mean by that is it's so easy for advisors, for like you, Justin, talking to me about how you're a business owner. And I start asking questions like, how many employees do you have? Do you have a retirement plan? And I'm trying to just start solving things for you right away. But I don't allow the space for you to really figure out what matters most to you and what's the real vision that you're aiming for. Right? So part of it is we start to ask questions. We don't allow ourselves to go deep enough with that questioning or with that process. So that's kind of a breadth issue and then also a depth issue. The next component that I think a lot of advisors who are trying to do it but don't do it well yet are going to run into is that it's easy for them to be excited about the high highs that clients have. But whenever someone brings a real longing into their life, a real challenge in their life, I have a feeling that advisors will get stuck. And more than likely, they'll shy away from that. And then we don't want to do that, right? We want to be a truly trusted individual in someone's life. If you can think about the people that you really trust and that you become most vulnerable with, they're usually the people that you can be with for the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so you really want to create a space where when the lowest of lows come around, you can give empathy. And then you can help them look at, well, what would they like to do instead? Or what can they do about that? Right? So that again, and it's not about me telling them what to do, but it's about me holding space with them. It's about me being with them. And then once they've felt what they need to feel there, that is energy, just as positive energy is there, we need to look at giving them the space to start crafting their own solution on what they can do to make progress in their life. Right? And that's where, with life planning, the financial life planning, it really is about facilitation. It's not about action on the advisor's part. I don't want to jump in with the solution on the financial life planning where they're coming up with their vision of an amazing life. I don't want to inject that they should go read this book or read that book or do this or do that. I'll have all those things in my head, but it's much similar. If anyone listening has children, if they've ever had a child come with a challenge or a frustration in their life, it's so easy to tell your child what to do, and then they don't go do it. And that leads to more frustration on your part, but they didn't do it because it wasn't their idea. Right? So we really want them to run on ideas that are theirs. Where that kind of ties in, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I didn't bring up the difference. When we get to traditional planning, I'm putting on my planning hat and helping with all that execution and all those things that need to happen. And the reason why is because for most people, financial planning and investment management is not something that's in their heart's core or they're like fun to do. You know, it's usually something that they feel they ought to do. Things that you think you ought to do in life are wonderful things to find people to do it for you.
I want to go back a second to one of your comments about like, it's easy to tell our kids how to do it, but not going to do it. It's got to be their idea. That was another big aha moment for me, because this is more about conversations I've had with financial advisors over the years and, talking shop and giving them ideas. Like I can sit across from you, Scott, and I can see the greatness in you, and I can see this big vision of what you could do if you wanted to go bigger, and I can paint this awesome picture. And like I've had countless phone calls where I do that, and we would hang up, and I know the advisor was excited, and I know they never did anything. And I used to just think if only I could have met with them more regularly, like if they would have hired me to consult with them, that I would have been able to make them do it. And I always thought that until Evoke. And then I realized, no, that wasn't their vision. That was my vision. And they have no emotional attachment to what it was I said, other than I got them excited. I kind of sold them on the idea, but then when I'm not there to sell, it goes away. And that was something that I think of it more as, that is a area of growth for me that I'm excited to pull back on. Because I used to think that was my superpower. Now I think my superpower has to morph into not leaning on that and being able to be that guide and help them. And I'm really excited to evolve my skills to be able to do that. But that was a big aha moment for me, is that that's why I never took. It wasn't their vision. And I heard somebody on social media like one of these spiritual accounts I follow on Instagram say that if somebody tells you that they can see the potential in you, they're lying.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not lying from a place of like to harm you, but what they see is what they would do inside of you with the potential they see. So I see the greatness of
Right.
Scott. If I were Scott and I had his skills, here's what I would go do. And
Right.
then here I am painting that vision, which may not be anything you have any interest in. But I thought I
Right.
saw something in you when it was really me inside of you.
Yeah. And so that's like, so that, yeah. That I forgot the first thing I was going to say, but the second thing I'm going to say based on that is that's why it's so important for anyone who wants to do this work with clients to do this work themselves. Right? Because if you haven't worked on your own life and your own life flourishing, you can really only take people as far as you've taken yourself. Right. So if because think of it this way, like if you're sitting with me and maybe I do want that big vision for my life, and then you're sitting down talking about how you want the big vision for your life. Well, in that moment, where do you think I'm going to go? Do you think I'm going to stay with you in the present moment? I'm going to go up here and start thinking about my own life. Right. So much of it's learning how to be truly present with people, truly present with people. Yeah. And then what were you saying? You were talking about, you were kind of putting that on people, huh? A little
Yeah,
bit.
I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I thought I was helping them, but it was.
Yeah. So that's where I wanted to go with it. So you were kind of like, you had the vision for someone and you were putting it on them. And then you were like, hey, if I spent more time on this, they would have done it. Here's the key underlier to all of that. And it sounds almost negative, but it's not. Never do for someone what they're not willing to do for themselves. And you can apply that to your spouse. You can apply it to your kids. You can there will be so much less suffering in your life if you live by that mantra. And essentially what that's getting at for you with the frame you were just talking about was you can go get people really excited to go do this amazing life. And what are you doing? You're creating an external motivator for them. And if the external motivator is not there, which is you, they're not going to follow through. Well, you can't, you'll literally burn yourself out trying to be that external motivator for people. But if instead people come to you and you can help them uncover their own intrinsic motivation and what matters most to them, and you can help them see that that's possible, and you can help them work through their next steps for them to go do that for themselves, well, then you're really helping bring so many more people into a more a more fulfilled state of living. That's the difference.
More of a philosophical question. Life planning plays into it, but what have you found? What do you think about this idea that when we have a better understanding of who we are, so think about the life planning process helping us do that, that aligning your dollars and figuring out how to manage your money becomes easier because you're more clear on who you are and what you want, and that a lot of our mishandling of finances or discomfort with it is because we're trying to use money to figure out who we are, which that's usually the wrong way to go about it. What thoughts do you have around that realm?
I 100% agree. So when you know what matters most to you about in your life and so the way I frame working with an advisor for clients is they have 4 things in life they get to invest. And they're coming to us for one thing, but they really have 4 that we're going to look at. And the 4 things are your time, your money, your energy, and your talent. Now, our friend Carl would say attention instead of talent, but I prefer talent. And the reason I prefer it is, like you, Justin, right now might decide that it's your calling to become a doctor, and you could use time, energy, and money to go to medical school down at IU. I was just down there a couple weeks ago, and you could go become a physician. It would take you a decade, but you could do it, right? And then once you do that, you could use that talent, energy, and time to create money. And they're all interchangeable. They really are. So once you understand that, the question just becomes, how do you align those things with your life? And once we understand the vision that you want for your life, what matters most to you, well, then we should always be asking ourselves, are our dollars going to things that really are helping me live that better life? Or is there anything here that's really kind of wasteful that I don't need so I can have more of the things that matter to me? Well, now you have real intrinsic motivation and a feeling around that money where you didn't before. You were just like, well, everyone else does it. And, I don't really like going to the country club, but like all my neighbors do. And it's how I connect with them. And, so I'm just going to keep it, but I don't really enjoy it and I don't use it very much. But I go for that one party. And the question is like, could your friend invite you for the one party? Right? And then what else could you do with your money to connect with your community? Could you be having amazing barbecues in your backyard? Like what are the things that light you up, that bring you joy to help people? So that's 100%. That's where that connection happens. And that's also how we get a connection in getting things done in the financial plan. Like, yeah, if you have kids who are growing up and you're a dual income family, I almost always guarantee that you're going to need life insurance, but people are horrible at getting life insurance taken care of. But like when I can have a discussion with you about Silas and like how much you love him and going to those Friday breakfasts, and what if you're not there to do those? We better make sure that that the finances are in order so that your wife can make those happen instead, right? Like, well, you're going to go get that done, right? Because I can tie it directly back to you and the life that matters to you. So yeah, 100%. It helps increase execution for planning, which was the original thing that drew me to this work. Was I was wearing my cape with my CFA and my CFP and telling people what to do and handing it to them, and they just wouldn't follow through, and it drove me nuts. I was like, you're literally paying me thousands of dollars to tell you what to do, and then you're not doing it. And it was like, I was so frustrated.
One time you said something about emotion being energy in motion or something like that. Do you remember that quote?
Yeah, it's a Louisism. So Louis, my mentor, will say that emotion equals energy in motion. And that's the truth. So we don't operate on we being humans, mankind. We do not operate on thinking. Like, you don't wake up in the morning and go work out because you think you should work out, Justin. You have an intrinsic motivation that makes you work out. And I don't know what it is, but it's there and it works. And it's clearly it's there for you because when you can so inside bit, Justin came surfing with me and I tried to put my wetsuit on him, and I'm not the size of Justin. And we zipped it up and it unzipped itself.
I was getting ready to say my motivation is to be able to fit in your wetsuit next time to lean out some more.
Well, that's leaning out then. Yeah, you have to work out. You have to do more cardio and less lifting. But the point is that all of us have our own intrinsic motivators that get us doing things. And sometimes you have to work on changing those intrinsic motivations, right? Because you're not going to do it. There's only so much willpower. Now, that's a different conversation for a different day, because you can actually now, I now learned you can actually work out willpower, which is amazing. David Goggins was on Huberman talking about it. Blew my mind. But the more you can align intrinsic motivation with the actions that need to take in your day and in your life, the more likely you are to follow through. That's why emotion equals energy in motion. We move on our emotions. We do not move on our thinking. We tie our thinking to emotions.
Man, I could talk to you all day, Scott, but I know you have things to get to this afternoon. So I guess I'll ask if there's any closing thoughts that you have on this topic of life planning. I think you did a phenomenal job, and we went into areas I hope we would that like are tangents off of it, but still tie into it. So I'll give you an opportunity to close it out, and then I'll ask you one final question and let you get on your way.
Yeah, well, for this work, it's a joy to do it, and I hope that if any of you are looking for a financial advisor who can really help you more with this style of a conversation, you can actually go to, and I'm sure, Justin, you can link to it in show notes, but kinderinstitute.com, and there's actually Find a Life Planners in the upper right-hand corner. So if you're interested in having more deep conversations with your planner and really tying your life to your money and getting your money to work as a tool, I think they're a great resource. So I would definitely go there. And I just want to thank you for the time, Justin, and I really want to thank you for your You have an unbridled curiosity and like a vivaciousness around learning that's just so amazing to see. And I can't wait to see what you do with this work.
Well, thank you. And I'll also link to Stone Steps too. So if anybody loves you, they can find you as well and learn more about your firm.
Sure.
But I appreciate that. And, you know, you've been around for all of my wandering over the last 8 years of me being, you know, a business owner, and all that wandering led me to this. And like, I don't know exactly, you know, where in the life planning world I land and fit, but like this is the world that I'm supposed to be in and meant to be in. So I look to you as somebody that I aspire to be like. I hold you up there with Louis and George as far as, I mean, I'm sure there's other great planners I don't know yet because I'm just getting into the community, but like this is where I'm supposed to be, and it feels so right and so exciting. So thank you for introducing and planting the seed years ago, being there to water that seed over the years, and then coming today to kind of share this message with other people. So my final question, I'm stealing from Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, their podcast, All the Smoke. They asked their guest if there was one guest that you would like to see on the podcast, who would it be, with the caveat being you have to help them get on the show.
Oof. Man, that's tough. Because Life Pursuit really is about like getting people to step into their better lives, right?
I mean, so the episodes of Life Design are, you know, talking to people who have gone from one place and made the change, whether they did life planning or not, that doesn't matter. Then there's subject matter experts. So, you know, you're a subject matter expert on life planning. So those are the two typical guests. But I mean, I'll have anybody on that has anything that might help somebody find and live their authentic life. So, and you can feel free to email me later and we can screenshot it if, you know, on the spot you can't think of anybody.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to think of other people who would be great for you. I need more time to think about it because I'm getting stumped right now live.
That's fair. I'll follow up, and then we'll screenshot and cut out all the personal information just to see who your recommendation was, and we'll tweet it out there. All right, Scott. Well, I appreciate your time, especially on the back end of coming home from being in Hawaii, helping advisors become better advisors. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your expertise. Thanks for the work that you do. And finally, thank you for being such a great friend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, I know exactly who I would say. I would say Elizabeth Chiton. She's amazing in the financial planning and in kind of in the life planning space frame as a whole. She would be amazing for you to chat with.